This week, I'm asking how we can map our user journeys and get a better idea of what our customers are doing to find us in search.
If you're going to take the time and resources to create a user journey for your site, it should be bespoke to your audience. But a lot of journeys, especially nowadays, are not linear. As you mentioned, it's really important to keep search intent in mind. Search intent is the key to staying focused on what your audience is really looking for. It really goes down to like really foundational concepts of organic search. We should be meeting the customer where they are in their journey, right?
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Search with Candour. I am your host, Jack Chambers Ward, and this is the podcast where I interview the best and brightest across SEO and digital marketing. If you haven't already, please do give us a like on our YouTube channel. That's available down below. You can subscribe there as well and hit the notification bell so you never miss a future episode. You can also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcast and leave ratings and comments on there as well. You can now comment on Spotify. We've been getting a few comments and a bit of feedback on Spotify, which is very, very cool. So yeah, please do let us know what you think of the show on wherever you're watching or listening. This week, I am joined by Grace Frohlich, and we're going to talk all about user journeys, how to map them, and how to better understand how your customers might be discovering you in search, around search, and what part of the customer journey they might be on when you're marketing to them. So here's my conversation with Grace after a word from our sponsor.
If you're not already using or you don't know what AlsoAsked is, let me give you 3 reasons you should be using it. Number 1, AlsoAsked gives you the intent blueprint directly from Google to help you make the best possible content. You get live pre-clustered searcher questions that are bang up to date, the majority of which aren't available from big keyword research tools. This is for any country or any language that Google supports, and you can quickly download it and export it in graphical or text format. Number 2, AlsoAsked's timeline feature shows you when a topic's intent has changed. This lets you know when you need to refresh and update your content, and crucially, what has changed, what people are asking right now. Number 3, AlsoAsked's API allows you to integrate with popular tools like Screaming Frog and ChatGPT to automate tasks like content gap discovery. Set it up with Screaming Frog and you can press a button to get a list of questions your content misses on every single URL. You can try AlsoAsked for free right now. Just go and put a search term in the box. Everybody gets 90 searches per month for free. You don't even need an account. If you do want to sign up, you can cancel at any time with a monthly account, or if you do want to commit to an annual account, you'll get an additional 20% off. If you're still unsure, check out some of the brilliant case studies and guides below this video.
My guest this week has over a decade in digital marketing experience. You may recognize them from talks at conferences such as Brighton SEO, Search Love, and the Women in Tech SEO Festival. You probably have also seen them on a couple of Whiteboard Fridays for Moz, as well as appearances on the Wix SEO Hub and the Lumar blog. She's the SEO Senior Manager at Brainlabs. Welcome to the show, Grace Frohlich.
Hi, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that intro was really like hyped me up.
That's the plan, right? I was just saying before we start recording, that's always my goal, is to kind of get you hyped up
Oh,
and
I
in the
loved
mood
it.
to chat about SEO and interesting things in search.
Oh
That's
yeah,
that's
that
my goal,
definitely
right?
put me in the right mindset. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for reaching out. It's funny because I've seen your Whiteboard Fridays, I've seen your talks before. It was very surreal for you to reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I want to be on the podcast." I'm like, "Oh, this is cool. Somebody I follow and
Oh,
admire. Like, I've seen
no
your
way.
lots of your content before. This is really, really cool." So it's very, very cool to finally have you on the show. And we're going to be talking about something I know you have studied a lot and researched a lot and used a lot in your day-to-day work and strategies and things like that. We're going to talk about user journeys in search.
Yes,
And I think that is
yes.
something, probably a phrase a lot of the listeners are aware of, probably a phrase a lot of the listeners and viewers have maybe used and thought about. But from the talks I've seen from yourself and the things I've done and my research and things like that, it's a much bigger topic than it seems at first glance, right? It's a bit of that
Yeah.
like tip of the iceberg kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's really funny because I think a lot of people I talk to or I meet, like, they know what it is or they've heard of it. They have a basic foundational understanding of what a user journey or customer journey is. Um, but yeah, I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, like, in depth or even, like, using it as a foundation for their strategy for search. So, yeah, I'm really excited to be talking about this with you today.
Yeah, that was something that really struck me when you did your Whiteboard Friday recently, talking about user journeys. That, as you said, so many people we all kind of have an idea of it. We've probably seen that phrase when looking up various analytics platforms or hear it in
Yeah,
conversation and things like that. And we're all aware of users and people going through things like the marketing funnel and, like you said, customer journeys of seeing things on social and then following through and all this kind of
mhm,
stuff. Concepts we talk about all the time on the podcast that are talked about in the industry all the time. But the fact that you got into the details and the actual kind of strategic applications of that is really where your talk
yeah,
stood out to me. I think that's why it's so interesting to get into those actual like real world applications, because I think we get
mm,
into a bad habit a lot of the time, and I've totally been guilty of this for talks and podcasts and things, where you keep it very hypothetical, very theoretical, and then it's like,
mhm,
cool, I learned a few things, but then you need to go off and like kind of do your own
yeah,
research of like, how do I actually apply this to my work with my clients or my in-house work or whatever you're doing.
yeah,
So I really appreciate your approach to it, where you were going in with, these are the kind of things I have done. These are real examples of stuff I have done to
mhm,
better understand user journeys in search, what that means, how we go about it, and all that kind of stuff. And I guess that's where I want to kind of start with is,
yeah,
where do we even start with this kind of thing, right? Because I think a lot of us, we've seen it in Universal Analytics or GA4. You see like the path exploration stuff. I mentioned the marketing funnel earlier.
yeah,
To you, where is the place to start when you want to be thinking about actually applying this user journey stuff to your real life work?
yeah. I mean, that's, definitely, the place to start is to kind of clarify the differences between what you think is like the traditional marketing funnel or even the path exploration tool in G4. Um, I told like the user journey that I'm talking about and I've created created a framework for is like completely like a 180, like not what you're thinking about. So so for example, the path you said the path exploration in G4, that mostly looks at what users like user behavior when they're on when they're on your website, and the path that they go through, the clicks and the pages they go through while they're on the site. What I want to talk about in my version of user journey is the space between when a user or a customer is has a need for something and when they're searching for something. So think about it. There's a little bit of psychology in this. So think about it as like a customer is motivated to search for something, and then also, what are the pain points they go through while they're on this journey, searching for this topic or this thing. So yeah, that's the journey that I want to talk about today. And and yeah.
I think that's, like I said, something we mention a lot, is that journey from the pain point of a customer. I think has become
Mhm.
such a key thing that so many of us think about. And you mentioned psychology there, definitely a topic that has come up many times on the show before, is how foundational marketing is, and how is essentially the same as it ever has been when it comes to advertising in newspapers hundreds of years ago, or the newest. I'm being very sound like a very old man here. The newest fads like TikTok ads and all that kind of stuff, right? The
Yeah.
the same human psychology still applies, because we're the same biological brains. We're the
Mhm.
same. I mentioned Julia Panozzo before we started recording. The neuroscience of it all, right? The psychology of it all.
Yeah.
We're still the same people, so the same, at least from my naive perspective, perhaps the similar kind of rules apply when you're thinking about the journey of someone finding your brand on the SERP or looking for a
Mhm.
particular thing, and how you present yourself and your content and your strategy items, your products, your services, whatever it might be, when it comes to that side of things. And I love that kind of, like you said, reframing of it and being like, actually, it's more about directly answering that pain point for customers, right?
Yeah,
Because that's where we got to be at the end of the day. There's no point
exactly.
writing content for or creating things that don't help your customers.
Exactly. I mean, you're absolutely right. It really goes down to like really foundational concepts of organic search is we or even marketing is we should be meeting the customer where they are in their journey, right? So in this framework, this concept, helps us do that. Um, I talk a lot about, how to figure out, the journey that your customer for your particular vertical or industry or brand, how they go about in their search journey, kind of their mindset, their psychology, and what their pain points are, and then um really like mapping that to, okay, how can we, meet the customer where they are at each particular touch point.
Yeah, I think there's that perhaps overquoted figure of somebody will see a brand 9 times before they actually engage with it or something like
Yeah.
that, and that can be anything from social ads to organic results to billboards and bus stops and everything in between. And I've totally felt that from both sides. You feel like wherever I go, I always keep bumping into this brand. They clearly must be relevant to me because every
Mhm.
algorithm I seem to be a part of seems to be serving it to me, whether it's Google or TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is. They keep cropping up. You also get the other side of it, which is go away. I don't want you. Stop. You're oversaturating. Go, like, leave me alone. You're following me around on buses and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think you're totally right. Not only meeting them, like the customers and the users where they are on a platform basis, but where they are in that journey when it comes to, again, I'm coming back to the classic kind of marketing funnel. Are
Yeah.
they researching something? Are they looking for, I don't really know what I'm looking for, but I need something to, as
Mhm.
we said, to solve this pain point? Or are they super educated, already a specialist in this topic, and they kind of know what they want? You
Yeah.
just need to serve the really specific answer to a more educated audience, right? I think there's a
Yeah.
huge gap there. And I think a lot of us totally mistake where the kind of knowledge ideas and the knowledge gaps of our audience can be. The classic, like, write your
Mhm.
content as if your audience are 6-year-old or whatever. Like, yeah, but my audience aren't 6-year-olds. And I had
Right.
this as very briefly as an example with a client of mine where they dealt with paving and decking and like big like parts of construction
Mm.
projects and things like that. And their target audience is architects and like project leaders for huge
Yeah.
multinational corporate projects for, you know, multinational supermarkets and stuff like that. It is not me needing a few paving slabs in my back garden. And
Right.
they are, if you're a professional architect, you're going to know what you're looking for. So there's no point writing how to lay a paving slab in your back
Yeah.
garden. That's not your audience, right? I
Yeah.
think a lot of us fall into that
Exactly.
trap of just kind of scattershot, write the thing that has the highest search volume and just hope for the best when it's actually who are you actually writing for, right? That's
Yeah.
the key in many
That's
ways.
that's such a good point. And I think that's also why, it's really worth us creating a bespoke user journey for your specific client or website, um, rather than, as you said, like doing like a one size fits all type user journey. That I mean, that might work for, uh, some things, broadly speaking, but if you're going to take the time and resources to create a user journey for your site, it should be bespoke. to your audience who you want to speak to.
100%. And I think that's where I know a topic you've covered a few times in these talks, that
Hmm.
idea of a persona and kind of reframing what we understand as a user persona. Because again, I think it's
Yeah,
something and a phrase a lot of us will have used, a lot of us will have discussed, and things like that, but maybe not in the way that you're framing it in terms of this user journey. So could you walk me through that kind of
yeah,
creating a new idea of this user journey persona?
yeah, definitely. So of course, traditionally we all think of a persona as like, oh, we create like this character, hypothetical character, like person in their mid-20s who likes, sports and listening to music and et cetera, et cetera. Um, but this is really not what I mean, it might be useful for, other types of marketing concepts and strategies, but for search specifically, when we talk about personas, what I'm really talking about is like how your audience searches. What do they search for? What are the phases they go through when they search for your specific industry or product or service? So typically, we would use the customer insights data like focus groups or surveys, that kind of thing. That's again really useful to get that kind of data, because then you have like firsthand what your customers search for or how they search. Um, but a lot of us don't have access to that. So, or it's very difficult to get, right? So, and this is where AI comes in. AI has been super helpful. And I've developed sort of like a step by step kind of method on, what to ask, what kind of prompts to use to get that kind of information. Yeah, because AI can pull like directly from the training data or the web, um, things that customers have searched for, or motivations for searching for this specific product, um, different pain points they go through when they're searching. So AI is really useful in that way to create that kind of persona.
I love bringing in motivation in there as, funny enough, something I don't often hear spoken about when it comes to
Hmm.
personas. You'd think we mentioned the pain point thing earlier, right? But you're right that we often get oh, Jack's a 34-year-old British man who's looking for a new jacket because it's
Hmm.
nearly winter and he needs to get a jacket. It's like, cool. Like, what does for example, I'm vegetarian, so I tend to steer away from real leather
Hmm.
clothes or something like
Hmm.
that. Without the extra context and the motivation and things, and something we've been talking about so much, it already seems to be the theme of the show in 2025 is aligning yourself with your users' values as well.
Yeah.
And I think
Hmm.
motivation ties so much into that when it comes to the motivation of that purchase, the motivation of you trying out a new product or a service. I'm sure you, knowing you, Grace, like there's a similar kind of thing, right? You want to align
Yeah.
yourself with brands that align with your values or that
Yeah.
adhere to your ethics and things like that. And I think that gets lost if you're just, Jack is a 34-year-old British man. What do
Right.
they like? Like, well, that's a
It's
massive group of people. That's not specific enough. And like you said,
yeah.
unless you have real data that you can work with, when it comes to the brilliant idea, like putting into an LLM and AI, when it comes to that prompt of what could motivate this person to want to buy this product, is
Hmm.
such a different question to, hey, why should I create this content for a 34-year-old British man? It's like, cool,
Right. Right.
yeah, but why would they care? Why should they care? How does that? There isn't anything in the world that could force me to buy this product over this product. But maybe there is. Maybe I
Mm,
don't know it already. Maybe there's even a thing I'm not aware of as a customer. And
yeah.
I love that kind of almost getting inside the user's head in that way, and not doing the super simple persona thing, but really getting into, as you said earlier, the psychology behind it, right? Getting
Mhm.
into the motivation of the customer and the user in
Yeah.
way more detail rather than a way, as we said earlier at the very beginning, that kind of top level, just a person. Like, okay, that doesn't really help.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And the thing about motivations is that it's not linear. So when we think about, the traditional marketing funnel or customer journey, we always think it's this linear path from, awareness to research to purchase. Um, but a lot of journeys, especially nowadays, are not linear. I mean, even Google has this was probably a few years ago when they posted something about like the messy middle. I don't know if you remember that, but it's
Yeah,
basically
that
that
that that
squiggly
phrase. Yeah.
like, here's the start of someone's search, and then there's like a squiggly, messy middle, and then there's like a end of the search, or end of the journey. So it's sort of like that concept, but I feel like it'll be different depending on, your audience and your industry. Um, and which is why motivations is a really good way to go about it, good approach, I think, because it's inherently non-linear. So you can create a customer journey using motivations and, still capture all the stages that a user goes through.
Definitely. I think it really comes to, again, coming around to that motivational side of things. I think we kind of interchangeably use that with something like search intent, right? Where you
Mhm.
kind of quite staunchly categorize transactional, informational, navigational. Like there are 5 or 6
There are
different
4
options, and
there are only 4, there's only
exactly right. Yeah. There's only
Yeah.
4 reasons anyone would ever search for a thing
Mhm.
out of trillions of results and probably millions of searches that person will do throughout their life. But the fact that we can just like, oh yeah, everybody talks about search intent, and it's been such a, not to use a phrase, a key word, a key phrase, a
Mhm.
buzzword over the last few years, bringing a motivation behind it, because you could get the same person, on the surface, very similar looking people in terms of their data and their demographic and all that kind of stuff, searching for something for completely different reasons. Like I
Mhm.
said, it could be a dietary choice, it could be a lifestyle choice, it could be health choices, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
An example I experienced in some keyword research I was doing last year for a client, they were a health focused kind of thing, and I noticed straight away it was kind of like supplements and stuff like that, and the way women, in this case from my research, searched for these health supplements and the way men searched were completely different.
Totally different,
women
yes. Yeah.
women were very age focused, so it was like health
Yeah.
supplements over 30, over 40, over 50. Men never mentioned their age once. They were just like how to lose weight or how to, build muscle, or it was very gender stereotyped, I hasten to add. I'm not endorsing
Mhm.
this, I'm just repeating the data that I
Yeah,
saw.
yeah. It's
But
very
it was so clear to
interesting.
me, like you said, it's the same product, but the motivations are completely different. Like,
Yeah.
oh, men are talking about hair loss and stuff. Like, yeah, obviously, gender stereotype.
Yeah.
And then women are talking about how to look younger because of the
Mhm.
standards of society and stuff like that.
Mhm.
We all exist in these frameworks, whether you like it or not. The whole conspiracy of your phone is listening to is like, actually, you probably give all of your data to all of these companies without even
Mhm.
realizing it, and they have built a profile of you already. You get those
Yeah.
there was that trend of those super personalized like Facebook t-shirts a while ago where it's like, I'm a
Uh,
34-year-old man from Norwich, and if you date my daughter, I'll show you my gun, or whatever. It's like they're
I must have
like
missed that.
oh, it
To
was
be
like the
fair, I'm not really on Facebook, so
oh, this was, yeah. I'm not on Facebook either, but this became like a bit of a meme, I think, where
okay.
it's like the font changes almost every single line, so it is the worst graphic design you've ever seen in your
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
and it basically spells out incredibly hyper specific things about that person. So it targets like Facebook
Mhm.
mums basically who don't understand how
Right.
this technology works. You're like, I'm a 50-year-old mother of two who loves her dogs and cats and has recently, got a new partner or whatever. How does it know? I'm like,
Oh my
because
gosh.
it's reading your data. And they're like, you get super
Yeah.
specific T-shirts with your entire life story basically printed on it. It's like, yeah, that's your persona. You're
Yeah.
wearing your marketing persona on your chest, like literally at that point. But to come back around to actual data and not just me taking the piss out of terrible T-shirts, I think that when it comes to that persona side of things, for you, when it comes to mapping that user journey, how do you get around that messy middle? How do you get around that, like you said, the squiggle and the chaos of just like stuff happens in the middle and we don't
Mhm.
know? What is the process of kind of getting a better understanding of that without getting stuck in hours and hours of research of
Yeah.
fiddling around and going in a million different directions?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. As you mentioned, it's really important to keep search intent in mind. And I think really search intent is the key to, staying kind of focused on what your audience is really looking for. So, and I've written about this in my article about building a user journey. Search intent, what I'm talking about is not, as you said, like navigational, informational, transactional. I'm really talking about like the true meaning behind someone's search query. So if someone is searching, you know, uh, dog toys, what's the search intent? What's the true meaning? Are they looking for a dog toy? Are they shopping around for, different types of dog toys? Are they looking for like the best type of dog toy for their dog? So really understanding that's the true meaning of the search behind the query is the key to understanding their motivations. And sometimes that can be a little bit challenging because especially if we go off of like head terms, like very broad terms, like it can be like it could be ambiguous a little bit. So, but this is why it's good to first look at motivations, map them out, and then match keywords to those motivations. And that's, I mean, I'm kind of giving away the process a little bit, or getting ahead of myself. But that is really the process that I go through is looking at search intent. What is your customer, really searching for at a specific point? Uh, what's the motivation? And then looking at, okay, what are the key terms or phrases that they search for at this specific point.
Yeah, I think, like I said, when we come around to that search intent kind of thing, I love the idea of kind of recategorizing everything under that motivational side of things, because when it comes to and this can come around to my next question quite nicely, funnily enough, there's going to be that element of that keyword clustering, right? Again, something we hear:
Mhm.
topic clustering, keyword
Yeah.
clustering, that kind of phrase. We hear that a lot. We've talked about it. I've had Andy from Keyword Insights. We've talked about it many times on the show before. But I think reframing it in the way we're talking about here with this user journey and the motivational perspective, I think could really completely change how you would traditionally cluster it based
Mhm.
on a SERP based cluster or the natural language processing combination that a lot of clustering tools use. Actually looking at it
Yeah.
from a third, like, psychological side of things, really for me shifts you into the mindset of that person rather than thinking about it in terms of the data and in terms of the numbers and in terms of,
Mhm.
oh, this person might click here or might click there. You actually think about, well, what would I do as a person? And this
Yeah.
is something I always do, even to use the other example of the user journey on a website. The first thing I do for a new client is, okay, I'm trying to buy this product. Where am I looking? Where am I going? You open up their website, imagine yourself as a customer, because you probably are.
Mhm.
how does this work? Where would I do an internal search? Would I use the navigation? Are there internal links on the homepage I can use? All this kind of stuff. And the same rules apply from the SERP.
Yeah.
What is the thing I'm going to type in to find this thing?
Right.
And again, leading on to kind of the next point here is how much search has evolved. I don't know.
Yeah.
You mentioned AI, right? Like it's an unavoidable subject at this point in 2025. The way
Yeah.
we search is changing. I mentioned before we started recording, this is kind of a conversational podcast. And
Mhm.
I think that's the way search has been going. I had Itamar Blauer on the show a few weeks ago talking about the shift towards this more personalized, more conversational way of searching. I feel like, you and I have been around enough in digital marketing and on the internet, but we kind of know what to type into Google to get what we want,
Yeah.
roughly.
We're
Even if
pros at searching.
exactly.
Believe
I don't know
me.
if you have this with your family members where it's like, oh, I can't find this thing, and then you come in and like,
And then I
there you
yeah,
go.
find it right away. Yeah.
I typed 2 extra words in, and there you go. I found this exact thing. You're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
fine, yeah. I joke that like, I basically Google things for a living. That's what SEOs do, right? But
Mhm.
we're definitely moving towards that. Whether it's literally talking into Gemini or ChatGPT in a literal, I'm not going to say the activation words, but the activation phrase, find
Mhm.
me a new jacket that is going to keep me warm when it's 5 degrees Celsius here in Norwich in February. And they're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. I would never type that into Google in a million years. That blows my mind. You would put winter jacket,
Yeah.
UK for sale UK or something like that. It's a completely different way of searching. So I think we're moving even more relevant to your points here about the user journey and about this motivation. People are being more detailed about their own motivations in this
Mhm.
conversational search. Would you agree? Am I completely
Absolutely.
off base here? Am I
No, absolutely.
going too deep?
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought it up because, when I first created this process, and I wrote this blog article about how to do it. That was 2 years ago. You know, Search is so different now. Um, I I'm actually in the process of updating this process with, AI LLM in mind, um, which, basically just like future proofing the user journey, um, or at least keeping up with the changes of search and how people search now. The same could be said about like social platforms. And I think this is what's really great about this customer journey process is you can actually integrate other channels into this journey. I we've actually at Brainlabs, my team and I have integrated, paid search and organic into this process to find opportunities for both channels. Um, and you can do something similar for social as well, um, which is, really good news because a lot of people discover new things on social. They find things like they didn't know that they needed to know, I guess.
You don't
Uh,
know you need to know it until you find it, right? Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So yeah, it's really great for that too.
Yeah, a perfect example. I was talking to my wife the other day, and we were looking for hairdressers here locally, and I kind of knew what she was going to say, so I kind of asked the leading question of, "Oh, if you're looking for a hairdresser nearby, you're going to Google, do the usual local search thing, right? Of
Yeah.
hairdressers Norwich or best
Mhm.
hairdressers Norwich or best hair salon Norwich, whatever you want to do, whatever variant of that phrase." And then you go and look on their Instagram. You're like, oh, hold on a minute. Now you're off the SERP. You're off doing other stuff. You're now,
Yeah.
like you said, you're on a social platform that is
Mhm.
still a part of your customer journey and still a part of your user journey. But you can't track that with Search Console. You can't track
Right.
that with GA4. There's no way of seeing, oh, by the way, Jack's wife clicked off and went and, clicked on their Instagram profile to see if the haircuts they do are actually any good or not. Do they work with this particular style or this particular color or whatever? You don't know that until you look for
Yeah.
it. And like you said, sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it as a customer, as a user, until you're doing it. And I know
Mhm.
there was obviously a big discussion a few years ago. is TikTok a search engine? It's like, no, but it can be part of your search journey. It can be part of your user journey and your customer journey. I love the idea of integrating multiple platforms. That's such a brilliant way of, again, pretty much the theme of last year all throughout the podcast was stop treating SEO like it's a silo. And the way you mentioned there, you and your team at Brainlabs bringing in the paid side of things as well, and understanding, again, the way you target keywords in organic can be similar to the way you do it in paid, but there is nuances and differences there where you can, like you said, back to the thing we mentioned at the beginning, you mentioned the pain points. Like, you can serve people things that they don't even know they're looking for with paid stuff, and you're ahead of the game already, right? You can end up as part of that journey where you wouldn't have done beforehand if you're not really, really focused on a specific phrase or a specific keyword. And again, as search evolves and changes, you're going to get fewer and fewer people. You can get more and more unique ways of searching for it, for want of a better phrase.
Yes.
And that messy middle gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, people are creating new pathways, really. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to be more important for us as marketers to kind of focus in on, okay, like our specific, what's our specific audience, our USP for our product or our service, and focus in on that, and then, basically creating that kind of journey so that we can be targeting the right people.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you talk about the way to kind of ground this all is something I'd not seen before in the milestones part of your process. I really, really
Yeah.
love where but you get a way to kind of more clearly and solidify this stuff. Because again, I feel like we get too lost in the kind of hypothetical, kind of conceptual kind of stuff. Actually grounding it in a real term. Could you go through that process for me and kind of
Yeah.
explain the milestones and the kind of stages that we go through in that process?
Yeah, definitely. So in the process, what I've kind of equated as milestones is basically pain points will map to milestones. It's kind of use it interchangeably. So essentially, a milestone is while a user is in like a certain motivational stage or search stage, there are specific pain points they go through, which are milestones. Um, and you again, you can find out what those are, and then you can map specific search terms or search queries to those milestones. um so I guess going back to like the dog toys example, you're in this a user is in this stage of looking for dog toys. Certain pain points or milestones could be dog toys for small dogs. My dog is really small. I need, a smaller dog toys. Or my dog is a chewer, it needs to be really sturdy and last a long time. So I can search like long lasting dog toys, for example. So there can be several milestones within a search stage. Um, and then, you can do a bit of research on, how users are searching within those specific milestones.
Yeah, I think for me, that's where it kind of brings it together. And again, we use the example of taking customer data, and the classic thing we always talk about is speak to your sales team and get the kind of things you literally
Mhm.
get the pain points from the direct
Yeah.
feedback of the users. What are people when they call the customer support team? What are they asking about? Oh, these dog toys always fall apart. Right. Okay. Maybe we
Mhm.
need to look into either creating an R&D process or finding a supplier for more durable, longer lasting kind of things. That makes total sense, right? Okay. But if you're not tracking that stuff, if you're not paying attention to it, if you're not putting it into a spreadsheet or keeping track of it somewhere,
Mhm.
that can
Yeah.
really get lost in the, as you said, you go off and then you start your keyword research process and you don't have that. Maybe you have 3, 4, 5, 10 different pain points, then you lose sight of it pretty quickly, right? I know,
Yeah.
and maybe that's my ADHD brain just going all over the place and losing track of stuff, which I definitely do. But for me, actually having that data there to track it long term and
Yeah.
be aware, this is a milestone, this is a process, this is where you need to really kind of start aiming and going through that, rather than, as we said, get lost in the messy middle of this nebulous kind of bit where you're not really sure. Well, they haven't bought anything yet, but they have thought about searching. So they're,
Mhm.
it's this kind of thing in the middle. I think those milestones for me is really where your framework kind of comes together and really kind of struck a chord in my brain of like, oh, that makes total sense to get a better idea of the tracking of this user journey, rather than you
Yeah.
track the start and the end and then whatever happens in the middle, I don't know.
Yeah, and
Actually
not
having
I
those
mean,
milestones helps
not
huge for me.
yeah, I mean, I'm glad you found that really, insightful. I think as long also along with tracking everything there, like keeping track of, the different pain points and milestones, I think, you said, talk to your sales team, about, customer pain points. Well, I think the limitation there really is, yeah, that's really good first party data, first hand data, but also customers tend to, you know, their search behavior is completely different from if you like were to interview them or ask them to fill out a survey. Um, Generally, users or customers will search for, you know, more detailed things, mo- eh, go into much more detail than if you were to call them and ask them, what were your pain points. So I think it's much more valuable to go with, um, researching using, what are LLMs, AI, search data to kind of create those milestones.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Like I said, I think you hear that phrase all the time of go and talk to your sales team, and you're absolutely spot on. The way people talk about their issues on the phone or by email are completely different to how we
Mhm.
search. And maybe this is, again, me being too British or too millennial or a combination of both. I don't want to pick up the phone. I don't want to talk to people on the
No.
phone. I can't think
Yeah,
of anything worse.
I'm on the
I
same
will,
boat.
again, using my wife as an example here, she doesn't care at all. She will pick up the phone. She will, if she
Mhm.
needs to go full Karen, she will go full Karen. She will get stuff done. And if we need to get stuff done, I'm like, hey, do you want to call them for me? Like, if it's up to my wife. And it was like, if you need something searching for, I'm your man. I
Yeah.
can search this stuff all day long. And you're right, it's a totally different data set. It could be the same person with the same problem or encounter similar people encountering similar problems even, but the way we word it, the way we phrase it, the way we
Mhm.
approach it can be totally different depending on the medium. Whether that is
Yep.
even filling out a form on the website in some sort of feedbacky kind of thing, or like you said, a how did we do kind of
Ye
email follow up thing and something as similar as that. Even if it is still digital and on the internet and it's not as archaic as a phone call, that's completely different to how people search for issues
Mhm.
online. And
It
again,
is,
coming back
yeah.
to the conversational side of things, that's changing as well. And I think those things are diverging even more than they ever have done before. So I think you're spot
Yeah.
on that you need to really make sure you're aware of what's relevant search data to your search strategies compared to other stuff. And it can totally influence it. I'm sure
Yeah.
there are crossovers, and I'm sure there is a Venn diagram of crossover in there somewhere. If everybody is saying the same thing, you probably have a bigger issue, like of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one product that is, every dog toy is destroyed in 2 bites. Like, yeah, you should probably invest in better dog toys. But
Yeah.
for me, I think you're spot on. Like, you can get carried away with the other parts of the journey that
Mhm.
you don't actually get the data for, that aren't actually relevant to your SEO strategies or your
Yeah,
content strategies, right?
yeah. Because when people search, like, they're in the moment, it's at their fingertips, literally. Like, they're in the moment, they're searching for their pain point that they're feeling right in that moment. Whereas if you get data from, emails or feedback or, filling out forms, they're not necessarily in that mindset or in that moment, so you'll get different data.
Yeah, you can get some. If you've ever seen like a heat map with rage clicks, they're always fun. Like it's the equivalent of that in my brain of just like, okay,
Yeah.
I've thought about, I've taken time to write this email, or it's been a couple of days, and then you get the customer feedback thing of, hey, how did we do? Rate us out of 5 stars or whatever. You might get time to cool down between then and there if you did have
Mhm.
a bad experience. Or the same is true, you might have forgotten how good it was at the time. There's a positive and a negative side to it.
Right.
Like there's that what's the phrase? Like the recency bias kind of thing, where
Oh, yes.
the most
Mhm.
recent film, the most recent album, the most recent concert, whatever, best one ever. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
can you believe it? And then you put it into the wider perspective of like, actually, no, I like their previous
Actually,
album more, or
yeah,
I 3
yeah.
albums ago, that was really good as well. I'd forgotten about that and all that kind of stuff. And I totally feel, you will get a different answer from the same person as soon as a
Yeah.
bad thing happens, and then 3 days later, and then a month later, and the same thing for positive things. And I think for me, that's like you said, where you lose that kind of perspective and the ability to track that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily know, so you can't put that framing. You can't add that milestone to, well, this is the person that tried to buy something 3 days ago and couldn't do it, unless they
Mm.
give you that context. And if they're searching
Yeah.
for stuff, you don't get that context. So you need to be aware of the data that you have and don't have, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So how do we go about tracking it then, Grace? Like, what is the actual process? Because
Yeah.
again, I'm sure the listeners and viewers know how to track some keywords. There's millions of different options for tools and things like that. But it's not as simple as just literally tracking some keywords on a
Mhm.
traditional, Ahrefs, SEMrush, Systrix, Stat, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the way I do it is may be different from the way someone else might do it, but how it makes sense in my head is, of course, like using a spreadsheet, just to organize all of it. So what I usually do is each stage is listed on a spreadsheet in one column, and then each corresponding milestone is, listed next to it. So you kind of categorize, by stage and then milestones. Again, like there could be multiple milestones within each stage. Um, and then from there, we can map keywords or, search terms within each of those milestones so that it's all organized in that way. Um, and then you can even go, a step further. For your website, you can map your pages to those keywords, um, which also can be very useful. And then, from there, you can kind of, create some visuals about, how much, search demand per stage or per milestone. Where are the gaps? Do I have a page that satisfies this motivation? Um, so yeah, that's generally how I like to kind of organize that data. And in terms of tracking the data, I mean, you could use, the keyword tracker that you currently use, by tagging by stage and by milestone. Um, if you'd like to do it that way. Yeah, that's basic the easiest way that I know how to do it. Um, yeah, if anyone has any, like, really creative other ways to do it, I'm all ears, I'm always up for, different ways of organizing data and tracking.
Definitely. I know, we're kindred spirits with the spreadsheet kind of thing. Because
Mhm.
again, something my answer to most things would be like, "I could probably make a spreadsheet of that." I'm like, "Oh, we need
Yeah,
to
it's
keep track of
it's
this
the
thing."
answer for almost everything.
Right? Exactly. We live data-led lives whether we know it or
Yep,
not, and it's
yep.
literally as something as simple as, again, using my wife and music as a reference point here again. if we're out shopping, and again, both of my wife and I, with our ADHD brains, might forget which vinyl record we own or don't own. So I created a Google sheet of our collection
Oh,
of who owns what and what
smart.
artists and what albums we have and stuff. So if we're out and about, I can get my phone out and be like, okay, hold on. Yeah, we have the second album, but
Mhm.
we don't actually have the first album. So let's get that one. And I live and die by my spreadsheets
Nice.
at this point, and it seems stupid. It seems out of context, and I'm being a bit facetious here, obviously. But when it comes to stuff like that, you mentioned a simple thing like
Mhm.
tagging those keywords.
Mhm.
That is something I don't hear enough people talk about. That is available in most of the keyword research tools that you're
Yes.
probably using, that you probably don't use enough.
Oh
And
gosh,
I
tag
have
those
gone through,
keywords.
right? Yeah, you can essentially build your own, for want of a better phrase, like you said, clusters or milestones,
Mhm.
or understand what's a gap and what's not a gap, just by adding those little things. And rather than, again, I've totally been guilty of this in the past, I will hold my hands up, just grabbing everything your site ranks for, your client sites rank for at once. Be aware of, like, oh, we're going to tag these URLs or these
Mhm.
keywords, either way you want to do it. So you get an idea of, well, we've been working on this particular, we've been working towards top level discovery stuff rather than bottom of the funnel stuff, or we've been working on the messy middle, or we've been working on bottom of the funnel, whatever it is. If you've got tags, you can get a better idea of which content is performing for
Yep.
what process. And I think that helps you focus personally.
Oh, yeah.
That certainly helped that for me, where, like you said, you're not just trying to tackle everything at once in one big,
Yeah.
oh God, we need to write 100 different pieces of
Yeah.
content and create
Well, I
15
mean,
videos.
y
And
you shouldn't do that.
exactly,
I
yeah,
don't encourage doing that at all. Focus is key.
definitely, definitely. I think we can get very easily overwhelmed, especially if you're working on a big site or a big
Oh,
client.
yeah.
The amount of data you're working with, as I'm sure you know, right, can get even with the best spreadsheets in the world, can get
Oh, yeah.
incredibly overwhelming
Mhm.
very quickly.
Yes. Agreed.
So I guess the kind of final question is, how often should you come around and reassess this, relook at this kind of stuff? We mentioned the tracking. We know that the classic old SEO is a marathon, not a sprint, like all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
Every time a
how
new
often?
LMM comes out. No,
Oh God.
I'm kidding. I mean, not really. No, I mean, I think you should definitely revisit your once you've created a customer journey that kind of works for you, at least update it once a year, um, if not twice a year, but, once a year is a good rule of thumb. Just because, as we said in the beginning, search is so different now, and it's rapidly changing. Um, so yeah, it's a good idea to keep that up to date.
Definitely. Like I said, you can get into the bad habit of doing one thing and then never checking it, or and things
Mhm.
like that. If you're going to track it long term, you need to kind of be checking in fairly regularly. I know that you can get into the other bad habit, I guess, of doing it too often and just obsessing. But
Yeah,
there's a balance. There's a balance to find there somewhere.
there is. There's definitely a balance. Yeah, I mean, I think if you've done everything right and, created the customer journey and put it into your tracking platform, you've done the majority of the work. All you gotta do, in a year in a year's time is check for updates and see if those milestones are still relevant, right? And even if, let's say your company is pivoting to, promote a new product, then those changes matter too. You can adjust your user journey to reflect, what you're promoting that year. Um, or if you have a shift in your service, um, you can definitely adjust your journey accordingly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Words to live by. I think that. Well, if the folks do want to follow you, Grace, and all the awesome work you're doing, whether that's about user journeys or anything else in SEO, where are the best places to follow you and the awesome work you're doing
Yes.
at Brainlabs and everywhere else?
I am obsessively on LinkedIn. Well, maybe not obsessive, but I am on LinkedIn like a lot. So you can definitely find me there. Um, but yeah, otherwise, you know, I actually try to keep off of socials for the most part, just because, the nature of the job. I'm online, constantly online. So I think definitely LinkedIn is the best way to kind of reach out if you have questions or, follow me. I do post pretty regularly on there.
Nice. I think the trying to keep out of social media as much as possible is a healthy way to be, mate. That is, but
Yeah.
LinkedIn seems kind of unavoidable for us SEOs at the moment.
It is, yeah. It is a bit. Yeah, I do try to limit my time on there.
A wise choice, a wise choice. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure discussing user journeys in more detail, going in a million different directions, exploring the messy middle a little bit, and
Yeah.
everything in between. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so much. I had a really great time. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
And that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you once again to Grace Frohlich for joining me. I think it was a really, really interesting conversation. Hopefully, you learned a lot about how to map your user journeys. And essentially, next week's plan is the live podcast collaboration with the SEO Mindset, recorded in front of a live audience in Brighton, because this is basically going to happen on the week of Brighton SEO. If you're watching or listening to this on the 7th, on Monday, we're going to be recording it on Wednesday, the 9th, and my plan is to hopefully get those files and get it sorted and edited for next week's episode. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And yeah, stay tuned for that. If I don't get to do that in time, I have plenty of other amazing guests coming up over the next few weeks as well. I've just recorded an episode with Kobe Ominaka, which won't be coming out for a few more weeks, but it was a really, really great conversation about how to find keywords for free. I'm also joined once again by Matt Coley. Yeah, Matt's back on the show talking about the next evolution of his career and his journey, going from, as we previously talked about, a freelancer to starting his own agency. So if you're thinking about starting your own agency, you're possibly moving in that direction in your career, or if it's something you've never even thought about and want to learn more about, my interview with Matt Coley is coming up in the next couple of weeks as well. I will also hopefully have some on the show floor interviews with a lot of folks from Brighton SEO as well. So stay tuned for more content coming up over the next few weeks from Brighton, not just the live podcast that we're coming out next week. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching or listening, and I will see you next week. Have a lovely week.